So if we have somebody listening and they're thinking, my life feels empty and I don't know where to start, what do you want them to know?
I think if your life feels empty, talk to someone about it. The universe has a way of presenting us with the opportunity that we need when we become open to it. And sitting and spiraling in our own heads is not being open.
Think about in your life if there were points at which you did feel like you had purpose, and what were they? Now, that's not necessarily instructive of what the future is, but it may give you some data to go on in terms of how you got to that point, or some common patterns of these times in your life when you did feel a sense of purpose.
Get to know yourself fearlessly. All the good, all the bad. Know who you are, and do that with someone. Do that with a therapist, a friend, a coach, whoever you trust, if that's what you need to do. But if you can open your heart to yourself exactly as you are, flaws and imperfections and achievements and strengths and all of it, and then you can start taking steps to fully embody that version of you, you're going to start finding things that feel meaningful.
What can you do today that will make tomorrow you proud? It's that simple. Sometimes it's just that simple. If you do that enough times, you will find purpose. It will exist. You'll touch it.
Welcome to No Alcohol Needed, the podcast. You are hanging out at the intersection of emotional wellness, personal growth, and living an alcohol-free life. Here we share everything we've learned and continue to learn about how to be happy, no alcohol needed. Hey everybody, welcome to No Alcohol Needed, the podcast. We are here hanging out with Mike and Christen, and we are going to talk all about finding your purpose and why are we even here. So we recorded an episode a couple of weeks ago about why people go back to drinking after years of sobriety. And one thing that kept coming up in that conversation was that a lot of those people lack a real sense of meaning and purpose in their lives. It's so common to stop drinking and then you look around at your life and you feel like you're not even sure what you're doing here, and it can be kind of overwhelming and scary. So we're going to talk about why it's important to have a sense of purpose, and also some steps you can take to find yours if that's something you're struggling with. So before we jump in, I'm going to remind you guys that if you would like to get to know Mike and Christen a little bit better, make sure you check out our website, noalcoholneeded.net. You can click on Meet the Voices and get to know these two and get to know all of our awesome professionals and advocates and the people that join us every week here. So make sure you check that out. And yeah, let's dig into this. Let's talk about how does a lack of meaning show up day to day? What does it look like in your life? What does it feel like when you lack a sense of meaning and purpose in your life? What are some people experiencing, or what did you experience when it felt that way?
Massive anxiety. I would say how it presented, one of the primary ways it presented for me. Constant discomfort. So some of those cliche explanations of how anxiety feels, like not feeling comfortable in my own skin. Self-esteem, just again, a lot of these things dovetail. Just a total lack of self-esteem and a real sense of hopelessness, because I frankly didn't know where to start in terms of finding that purpose. My emotions, as we talk about being signals, my emotions are signaling to me, you're missing something. Some big part of the equation's being left out here. And your body is short-circuiting because of that. And it contributed massively in terms of my entire recovery experience.
Mm-hmm. It's that you're missing something. There's a void. There's a noticeable void in your life, and you wake up every day and you do all the things every day, and you're like, why do I just keep doing this every day? And nothing's changing and nothing feels different, and everything almost feels pointless, right?
Oh, I can remember watching people mow their lawn on a Sunday morning and thinking, how the fuck are you even doing that? How do you care enough? How do you feel enough purpose in taking care of your house or to even do a routine activity like that? Because chemicals had helped, a big part of me being able to function in that way. That absent them, I can remember very distinctly things like that, mowing the lawn. That memory came up for me in an appointment earlier this week that I shared with someone. So that specifically comes to mind.
Man, does
Mhm.
that ever bring me back too? Because I'm like thinking about me mowing the lawn, and I'm going, I looked more forward to the beer that I was going to drink while I
Yeah.
was mowing the lawn, and that was the motivation to go and
Yeah.
mow the
No,
lawn,
eh,
not actually to take care of the yard, right? Like the motive, or to not get in trouble because I let it get too long, right? My motivation was very different, rather than like the positive side of that motivation, where I want to do this because I want to take care of it.
yeah.
Right? It's a thing that I have that I want to, do well. Completely different way. But yeah, absolutely. I feel that.
Mhm.
I first of all, I had a complete existential crisis this week thinking about this topic. I'm just gonna say that. Like, I was like, "Who are
You're
we?"
here.
I'm
Excellent. You
going
made it.
Plato. I'm going Frankel. I'm going like I was like digging, not even digging. Like I was like explosion of ideas and things to say. But I I think we've talked about before in the past, like sobriety, emotional growth, kind of like how those things align. And like for me, like it was like sobriety, emotional sobriety, sort of, and then emotional growth. Like we're a little bit later than actually the point that
Yeah.
I cut substances out of my life. But I didn't have a lot of purpose before even that sobriety point. Like there were not things other I had all of those feelings you're talking about, Mike, before and after the sobriety point, like
Same.
fear,
Hmm.
lost, what am I doing here? The world would be better off without me. And I had all of those things after the day I got to quit drinking, right? So the early sobriety part about not having a purpose, I think what was so disheartening about it for me was when I quit drinking, I didn't then have a purpose. Like that emotional struggle didn't change for me. There wasn't like sort of this turnaround. And that's really hard. Like, I just want to acknowledge to the people that are listening to this, that is really hard in the first few months,
Yeah.
up to maybe a year or however long it takes to kind of make that shift. And so like I just sort of want to acknowledge that like if there's no change in where you're at with your purpose, I think but once you quit drinking, that's okay. Like that's normal. That
Hmm.
happens. You don't immediately want to live life. You may have a brief kind of pink cloud thing, and this may be different for everybody. This what I'm really talking about is my experience. And the other thing is that I wanted to say, and this isn't exactly that question, but it's like a clarification that I had to make for myself when I was thinking very hard about this question is purpose in life is not about an external thing. It's an inside thing. It's an inside job for me. So I think the struggle that I felt, the lack of purpose, that fear, that like what do I do next, that how do I get to a place where I want to wake up in the like I thought I would quit drinking and want to wake up in the morning. I did not want to wake up in the morning. I did not want to take care of
Hmm.
my kids. I did not have this thing that some people talk about of like I didn't immediately have this response of like, oh, now I need to go fix all this stuff. In
Mhm.
fact, that sort of existential dread of all of the things from before I quit drinking that I quit drinking, and I'm like, still no solution. That was the feeling.
Facts.
There is a
That
solution. But
is,
it was like,
yeah.
oh, why am I not drinking right now?
It didn't
Why
fix
don't I
anything. It
just
just fixed the
at
not
all?
drinking part. That was it.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I think what I wrote and what I was thinking about with this question is that the lack of purpose or lack of meaning in life for me is much more a state of mind than a lack of connecting with some external activity that makes me feel complete or meaningful, which I think you guys were saying as well about mowing the lawn. Like no one's like, I mean, there's a somewhat of a reward when I put together a piece of IKEA furniture, not high, and I complete it. That's awesome. Or high. I mean, actually, that's a very rewarding activity for me, but it doesn't give me meaning. It doesn't give me purpose, you know? So how does that show up for me day to day? How did that show up for me day to day and in pre-sobriety and early sobriety, and how does it show up for me now? Everything Mike said. It's fear, it's dread, it's why am I here? That question is terrifying. And I forgot until you sent it to me, Julie, how terrifying it is. So thank you for
Mhm.
contributing to my exhaustion this week, but
Oh, yeah.
also my
No,
deep thought process.
for real, I had I've had a couple of existential crises
Okay.
over the years, but this past summer was a brutal one where I
Hmm.
was just like, what the actual fuck am I doing here?
Right.
And why am I suffering so much? And it was actually a pretty dark time. And I think that that
Hmm.
feeling a lack of purpose, feeling a lack of meaning and direction gets really dark. And if
Hmm.
you don't have tools and you're not surrounded by people that can help hold you while you're in it, I think it can get dark and it can get dangerous.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough that I have an excellent support system and I have people that I can talk to. So it was dark, but it wasn't necessarily dangerous, but it was still hard. I was like, and you know,
Right.
I have a great therapist, and over the years, I don't see her every week. And there for a little bit, I was seeing her every week
Hmm.
because I needed to work through a lot of the thoughts. They're big, huge thoughts. There's
Hmm.
no real answer to them. um there's no like concrete answer to what is your purpose, and so you can find yourself mixed up and floating through all of this stuff, and
Hmm.
it's hard, it's dark, it's painful, it's scary,
Hmm.
it's a lot of different things when you're in the middle of the crisis part of it. Like you can
Hmm.
live it day to day and it's just like uncomfortable, kind of itchy, or kind of squirmy, but then when the crisis hits you, like, flips you upside down, throws you on your
Yeah.
back, and you're just like, you know, kinda helpless for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, choking for sure.
Yeah.
Can I clarify like that? Way I was describing it on the timeline, I want to use the vocabulary that you guys are using as well in terms of, I think Kristen, you said like pre-sobriety, or early sobriety, pre-sobriety, and then I'm not sure, but for me, like this is how I define like recovery for me. So some of the times I'm talking about lawnmower anecdote, for instance, I that meant I was definitely not using it at that point. So my body
Oh.
was sober of chemicals, you know what I mean? But that's exactly why I was in that panicked state, is because at I want to speak from my personal experience, but I also do have like a large experience of interactions with other people in recovery. And what I find so pervasive is that if the alcohol or the drug is discontinued and that's it, the situation is exacerbated immediately, almost
Mhm.
always. So in terms of perspective, I don't even count that time as when people ask how long I've been in recovery or anything. I don't even think about that time. I mean, I'm sure I used after that at some point too, but not chronically. But I just don't even think about it as being like my recovery time, because I was not emotionally recover in any way whatsoever.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to clarify that. And then also, Steve, I swear I'll let you talk at some point, but I just wanted to say what Kristen, when you talked about it needing to come from where does it come from, the outside or the inside? And Julie, you talked about the evasiveness of this as well. And that's what made it so much like an eel trying to grab onto an eel for me, is that I was sitting there with this programming thinking what I'm looking for it necessarily comes from the outside, because that's what I had known my whole life. And by that, I mean like purpose or validation or, meaning.
Mhm.
It's really sad to say, but I didn't even see that dissonance. I couldn't. So I only could imagine things that would be outside validation. And once I my entire belief system was torn down, and I mean that in a very positive way, could I see that purpose, I was only going to find that inside. And that is when things got better. That was super empowering. And then I at least had some autonomy in some direction in my recovery.
It's very weird though when you talk about that being super empowering, because it feels helpless before it feels empowering.
Yeah.
Like that's the crazy part about that whole thing. The level of helplessness that shows up before it becomes an empowering experience. And I've gone through this enough times now that when I'm done, I feel more alive than I did, prior to. But they've all come with a helpless experience prior to actually finding what purpose looks like to me. And you talk about those small things, early recovery. Sometimes purpose was just as little as going out and mowing the lawn, doing something small, because something that big, the responsibility of something that big was freaking terrifying. That's what you guys are talking about. The terrifyingness, reality of the responsibility that purpose gives you.
What am I living for?
What am I living for? Right? Like,
scary, dude.
That's the scariest part. And then what happens to me if I start taking that responsibility in my life and everyone else disappears? Because the message that I tell myself is, as soon as I start believing in something, all of these people are gone that I care about. And if my purpose at the time was chasing external validation, Mike, which is what you're talking about, because that's what I did too, because if it came from the outside, it obviously validated the thing that I was doing, and that's what made things feel safe. That's what made things feel comfortable. That's how I gauged my importance in my world.
Yeah, and it's not even as black and white as probably I presented it too. Like there was some internal understanding of what was meaningful and purposeful to me. It was just very perverted through that flawed belief system, So it was maybe 90-10 or 80-20 or something, and the rest of the meaning came from outside sources that didn't really align with my values. And that's where I think this conversation really goes.
Yeah, this is what I think we're both saying the same thing. How many days did you, like in a row, probably a lot, did you wake up in the morning feeling like, son of a bitch, I gotta peel my ass out of bed again? Son of a bitch, I gotta peel my ass out of bed again. And it's Groundhog Day all over again. I'm going to do the same stuff that I felt miserable doing the day before. It's all on my task list all over again. And I just got rid of it yesterday before I went to bed. Like, that's hard. And
it's hard to want to keep doing that.
It's hard to want to keep doing that. So what did I do? What did that look for me? It looked like avoidance. Right? We have these things that really help with the task of avoidance. I can sit on this thing and I can scroll, and I can not take care of myself properly. Like there's all of those little things that start falling away, and then it's because I feel empty. It's the emptiness that really creates the lack of not want.
Right.
It drives it.
Yeah. I think there's like this, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, why is this state so dangerous for people who have chosen to stop drinking? I think a big part of it was, for me, especially in the early days, and I think Kristen's the one that said this, like, you quit drinking and you think it's going to solve your problems, but reality is you quit drinking and it shines a light on all of your problems. And you're like, oh shit, I have so much I have to do. Right. And for me,
nodding,
exactly. Exactly. And that's not something you expect. You think that you're going to stop drinking and it's going to get better. And then you're like, oh my God, it's so much worse right now. And it's very disheartening and discouraging. For me,
Yeah.
one of the things that really showed up was, what am I doing here? And why am I even bothering to go through the suffering? And for me, it was like, why am I even bothering to fight every day to not drink? What's the point of not drinking if every day feels meaningless anyway? And that, I think, in my earlier days when I was really, I was in that place where it wasn't going to take a whole lot to pull me back. That was a really dangerous thought, was why am
Yep.
I bothering to try so hard to stay sober? Because I didn't have anything in that space. That void was still so empty that I didn't have something I was actually fighting for.
You just made me think about something too, is like what making that time so vulnerable, and how I mentioned earlier of how just I see this massive pattern of situations exacerbating early, when people first discontinue the chemical. What you just made me think of is that I think we're kind of set up. I don't mean like to victimize ourselves, but we're holding those beliefs and expectations ourselves. But if in our addiction, like our loved ones were part of it and affected by it, which in most cases they are, people who don't understand addiction tend to really expect that, like, oh, he quit drinking, so things will be smooth sailing now.
Right.
And that can be, that contributes to our own disillusion about it. And it can be pretty undermining.
It feels like failure, right? It feels like failure for us, but then also it feels like the people that we love are seeing us as failing too,
It's
and it just becomes, it definitely becomes discouraging.
it's the easiest
Yeah.
way to be like, well, fuck it, right?
Yes.
Like,
Good
I
point,
quit
yeah.
drinking.
Yep.
I quit. I finally put it down. Maybe I don't even have a great or big problem with it, but it's something I want to get rid of in my life. And things don't go the way I expect them to go when I remove it from my life, because everything else still exists. It didn't make anything better, so it's clearly not the problem,
Right.
right? And so it's easy to go back because it doesn't clearly represent that it is the problem until you see it happen in your life more times than you'd like to
Right.
admit.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
for
and
sure.
I think the darkness, Julie, that you pointed out is, and I guess when I say this, I'm encouraging listeners. I went through a really dark period where I had to reach out and ask for real help in early sobriety, because because I was choosing to not drink and not use any substances at that time, and no psych meds, no nothing. I actually still don't, but I was making this conscious choice, and I was not, like, mentally, I was not gonna go back to those things. And the danger in that for me is that the other mental direction that we can go in without support is really suicidal. Like, I
Hmm.
want to tell people that if they're choosing, like, and maybe this comes from the field that I work in and the work that I do, but like, call somebody, call social services, call 988, call a friend, call somebody, because yes, it is, and I'm not, and I don't think you should drink, but like, that hard line for yourself does get really dark in the beginning. Like, it did for me.
So
And holding that drinking, that no, I'm not gonna drink, which was it for me at the time, my only coping skill,
Mhm.
it really put me in a weird place, and not just because of those big problems, but because it was the thing that I couldn't interact with people socially, I couldn't date, I couldn't have sex, I couldn't walk in public. Like, I was drunk in public all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so just in not just mowing the lawn, but like interacting with other people, which is exactly what you need when you're in this mental state of darkness,
Yes.
of struggle, of suicide. You need connection.
Yes.
You I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do it.
Hmm.
So this all sounds like really depressing, and I think we all have a pretty happy ending, but I do not warn, but I make people aware. I help people become aware, like, this is the path you take. Call 988, call social services, call 911 if you have to, because it will pass, but it it could pass with dire consequences if we don't reach out for help.
So I want to do something here because this is not a topic or a thing that we talk about very often. But I also just want our listeners to know and hear it from us. So I'm gonna ask the question. You've clearly stated that like that's suicide, taking your own life, is something that crossed your mind more than
Yeah.
once. And
Yeah.
so I'm gonna put this on the floor to Julie and Mike because I know it had crossed my mind a bunch of times too. And this is something nobody wants to say because it feels so dangerous. And I also want other people to know, like, the thought isn't what does the trick. It goes beyond that. So Julie, if you want to just Julie and Mike, if you want to share just a wee bit to say like we've all kind of been there, then it's probably good for other people to hear because that's one thing that's crossed my mind that I've held a lot of shame about.
Mhm.
And it's also something I've overcome and and I'm on the other side of again. And I mean, I've had that thought more than once in my life and in different areas of my life at different times. You go through the existential crisis again, and then the purpose you
Right.
thought you had wasn't the purpose anymore. And then so you do this all over again. And then you feel that same level of deep hopelessness that leads you to those thoughts. Julie, I'm gonna hand it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think so many people have been there. Nobody wants to talk about it. I know when I've been talking to people, other people that are going through a similar place, and I'm like, look, there was a time in my life, like not that long ago when I was sober, where I was like, if this is what it's going to be like, there's no point in me even being here anymore. Like,
Mhm.
and nobody wants to say that because it feels like you're failing. It feels so terrifying. It feels all of these things. It feels like somebody's going to panic and call 911 because you just, said that you wanted to kill yourself. And like, we can't even talk about this without feel like I can even, as I'm saying these words, I feel like I need to be walking on eggshells.
I know the whole time I was talking, I felt the same way.
But, really,
Yes.
everybody would be better off if we had conversations like this and we're like, you're not the only person that has those thoughts.
That's why I wanted to
Those
bring it up in this fashion. And I think it's important.
Yeah, like there's so much that I talk about so openly, and this one still makes me cringe because we don't say these things. Because this is like, this is what makes people call 911, like, oh my gosh, this person's freaking
Mhm.
out, and that's terrifying. And so nobody wants to say anything. Nobody wants to admit those thoughts are going through their heads. I think there's a very big difference between what am I doing here? I might as well just kill myself. And I'm actually going to do this. Like there is a difference between those two things. But we like those thoughts that why am I even bothering to do this? There's a lot of people who have those thoughts. Like
Yeah.
most of the people that I talk to have had those thoughts at some point.
Yep.
And the other point I want to make to anybody who's listening is this isn't only early sobriety stuff.
Mm-mm.
This is
Mhm.
stuff that will come through your head. This is stuff that will come up in your life over and over throughout your life.
Yeah.
And I think that that thought is just this massive red flag like, hey, you need to do something different. You need
Yep.
to talk to somebody and you need to
Yep.
figure out what's going on and what actions need to be taken. But this is things aren't okay the way they are right now. And it's time to figure out what needs to change. And I think if we can just see it as that instead of this thing to panic and shame ourselves about, we'd be in a much better place.
I mean, Kristen, I'm so glad that you like broached this because and just had the forethought to think of the listener. I'm sorry, everybody. I don't know if I do that enough. I tend to maybe just share and have enjoyed the conversation with you guys. But to think about that for them, I just really I appreciate that. And then Steve, you opening it up in this way, I just yeah, it does. I'm just so glad you did because it's something that is I feel a lot of avoidance around. And Kristen
It's a
mentioned,
hard topic to broach personally. It's a
yeah,
hard topic to broach in a group of people, even that you feel comfortable and safe with, because there's already enough shame around it. Like if you were to call me up and say, "Hey, like this is these are the thoughts that are going through my mind," I still wouldn't know how to fucking deal with it. Like
exactly, yeah,
that's
Mhm.
the hardest part. It's not something we deal with on a regular basis. It's terrifying to be on the other end of it too, right?
right, yeah,
It
oh yeah,
is. And so it is just hard. Anyways, I'm gonna hand it back to you so you can like finish.
Sure. I just was gonna. I mean, I'm gonna respond to what you're saying now because obviously my ADHD rattled brain forgot where I was before. But anyway, there is a sense whether you're on the delivering or the receiving end of this information, like your hand, like for me, that my hand's on like a fire alarm or something. You know what I
Mhm,
mean? Like, and it feels scary for someone to talk to you about it. And part of this is career, I think like Kristen alluded to, like being
mhm,
baked into our profession and in terms of like laws around reporting and stuff like that. It's a very, very nerve-wracking topic. Um
mhm.
and then I'll just say obviously I am not a personal exception to this. I am with the three of you in that I've experienced this. Um I experienced it pretty acutely in some really panic driven situations where I just felt so desperate to get out of. Um, I think I have told Steve before that some of the ways it showed up for me were like in these repetitive, like almost like watching a GIF, how a GIF just like goes over and over, seeing something like violent happen to me. And
Mhm.
like I don't need to get much more graphic than that, but I would just it was almost I didn't have, it's not almost I did not have control over that. It was really persistent. And where and when that occurred most were the places and times of my greatest isolation.
Hmm.
So
Mhm,
bring it
mhm.
back to like what we need at that time. I am very grateful to be able to sit now and see and know that that's what my brain and body were crying out for. Um, among the other contributing factors. So
Mhm.
that's uh that's my experience with it.
Yeah, that's definitely not something we've talked about super openly here. And, as with everything else, generally when we don't talk about something openly, it's either because we're afraid of it or we're ashamed of it. And I think in this case, it's probably both.
Hmm.
And I think the more open conversations that we have where we don't act like we have to tiptoe around it and we can just say like the things, I think that's how we start removing a little bit of the shame and making it safer for anybody to feel like they can talk about it. 'Cause that's what we need to do. If everybody felt like they could talk about those thoughts and feelings, a lot of lives would be saved.
A lot
Um,
of lives,
Yeah.
a lot of lives, and if people could talk about it in a way, that if people could talk about it enough to explore it and understand that there were solutions, because that's where I really got stuck was, "What's the solution to this? I wanna die." There's nobody can take this away. The first time I experienced it in sobriety, there was no point of reference, right? So, like, now I have a point of reference, I've been through it, I sort of have the not to minimize it, not that I wouldn't reach out to people, but that this too shall pass, and someone happened to kind of has found me in that state, and I've actually talked about this state from right before I got sober when a friend broke into my house, found me, called another friend, found another friend, and ended up calling a friend of mine from college who was a social worker who had me committed for 72 hours, 1013
Wow.
at it's called 1013 in North Carolina. And I want to say I have had multiple friends put on 72-hour holds since then, and they have all thanked me. And I also want to say I
Wow.
went to a concert with that guy last night. I ain't mad at him. He played poker with my partner 3 nights ago. So the fear that we have around getting professional help or personal help kills,
mhm,
and it almost killed me. And if I didn't have just that one person who broke into my house, who maybe was or was not a good influence on my life at the time, but who had eyes on me and called a person who called a person who called a person, I would not be alive. And in sobriety, the same thing. Called a person, called a person, called a person. I would not be alive. So I just coming from someone who has been held for 72 hours for fear of harming themselves by professionals, I'm going to tell you. And I have also died and had a near death experience, and I'm going to tell you I want to be here on earth. I don't want to die. I'm not afraid of dying, but that's not how I want to go, and I'm also not afraid of the 72-hour hold. Like if I get to that point again, I will call 911 and say I need eyes on me, And I don't have any shame about that. I have zero shame. And I'm able, because of that experience, I'm able to tell other people when they call me and they say, I don't think I should be here. I'm having these thoughts. I'm making these plans. I can say, hey, let me tell you what it looks like when you're on a 72-hour hold. Can I bring you to the mental health department? So now nobody who's listening is going to call me for help because they're going to be like, she's going to have me
Scared
locked
of
up. But,
no,
but
so that's
I'm
why I'm so
telling
glad
you,
you're
there's
explaining.
something about that moment you cross into that, whether it's help from community or help from a professional, where they say, here's the next thing. Here's the next right thing, because that is the scariest part about that, is that you get stuck in this purposeless, and it is purposeless. That is what this is about. That is what brought this up. This is, I have no meaning. There's no reason for me to be here. I'm just going to end this now. And it can move very quickly from I am no good here to I am going to end this now, quicker
Yes.
than you think it can go. And ask for some help, because the moment somebody like me or Mike or Julie or Steve or a professional psychiatrist steps in and says, here's the next right thing, there's one other solution. And that's all you need to begin to turn in the other direction. That's all you need. Um, Anyways, I could go on and on about this because it's obviously very close to my heart, and it's why I do what I do. But yeah, I just had to say all that. It's not as scary as where you are.
Yes.
It's not as scary as where you are. And there is purpose. That's the other thing. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. There is purpose. There is this too shall pass has not been around forever, because things don't pass. Things pass.
Right.
You know,
It's just that you
everything does.
can't see what that looks
Yeah,
like yet. So it feels like this big black hole of
right,
nothing.
Yeah, it
And
feels impossible.
it does. It
right,
feels impossible and you can't see anything there. And so when you're in that space, it feels like you are blindly taking steps forward in pitch black and you have no idea where you're
right,
going and you have no idea when it's going to end. And
right,
the minute you say, "Hey, I need help. I don't know what to do. I don't feel safe right now," whatever that
right.
is, then somebody grabs your hand and helps walk
Mhm.
you through that darkness to find your way to something that feels lighter and more possible. And you if you've never experienced that, it's terrifying to even think about. But it is that's the right step. That's the next
Yeah,
right thing to do, is to let someone hold your hand in that darkness and take a few steps with you. So yeah, thank you guys for having the willingness and the courage to have that conversation, because I think it's one that doesn't get had often enough. And I know, every person that we can reach that needs to hear that, I hope that they do hear what we've shared here, because I think it's important.
Yeah, that was
Um,
not my intention, obviously. I mean, I think Christen and
No, but
Steve
I
really
mean,
ran with that. So, and I appreciate that. Even I'm thinking about it, knowing that people who know me listen to this, you know what I mean, loved ones and everything. And I'm already thinking about when I was trying to explain it on my personal experience. I'm thinking how uncomfortable I might be making somebody, which I think really speaks to why
that's exactly why that's why
yeah,
this is important. Because if
just,
we are
yeah,
sitting here as four professionals who work with people daily in the addiction field, we even cringe a little bit to talk about it and to
yeah,
talk about our experiences. I think that speaks volumes to
exactly.
how secretive and scary that conversation is.
it takes courage. It
Hmm.
takes courage. And then one of the reasons why I brought it up after and wanted to bring it to everyone's experience is because uh, I know all of us have, and I think it's important that we normalize it, not just 1 out of 4, because I, it is way more prevalent
right.
than what any of us ever want to talk about or admit to, really. And then on the flip side of that, and I said this earlier, I've found purpose after those really shitty moments.
Yeah.
Like, I have
Yeah,
found that, like, a lot of the energy I have today still continues to come from the depths of that shithole,
Hmm.
yep,
right? Because I know what that felt like, and I don't want to go back there. It is a deep burning hole of energy that keeps me moving today. It looks way different than it did before, but my purpose came from that. And there was
Yeah.
a quote that I thought about when I was listening to the rest of you guys share, and it's a quote that's literally on my Facebook page, and it's the most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire. It's by Ferdinand Foch. And and I am and I feel the most powerful I've ever felt before today because of those moments. Those moments were like a launching spot, the birthplace of the next batch of energy that I've used to pour into myself and the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much purpose that can come out of getting through it and getting to the other side of it that you just can't see when you're on that side. But
Not a
for
chance.
anybody who's listening, know that getting through those moments can be the fuel for your fire if you make it through and you do the things you need to do. I'm going to
I think
shift our. Oh, go ahead,
Right.
Kristen.
I was just gonna say, worst case scenario, what comes out of that is you end up like the four of us. Like least case scenario
Ex-
is someone calls you and they're like, I feel like I'm gonna hurt myself, and you can be the one to say, oh my gosh, I've been there too. I know
Mhm.
exactly what to do. Let me walk you through it. Like there's no greater purpose than transforming your what is it? Your mess into your message.
Yeah.
There's no
yeah.
greater purpose
Mhm.
than that. And that is where value comes from. That is where self-value comes from. So worst case scenario, you ask for help, you make it through it, and you can help somebody else,
Hmm.
you
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah. So let's like take that and run with our next point here, which is what does having a purpose actually mean to you? Like we so often we're like, what is my purpose? And we're looking for this big, vast thing. And we feel like when we find it, it's gonna be like, this is why I'm here, right? It's like the golden chalice of answers of here's the entire meaning of my life. And I don't think it works that way. So what does having a purpose look like and feel like to you personally in your life?
No one.
Take it away, Mike.
Crickets. um, it's tough for me to think of this separate as anything but like being the paramount consideration for my well-being. And I mean that because if there's like a Venn diagram of areas of my life, so I'm picturing it in my brain, um, like family and connection and work, all these different things. Underneath all of them, all those pieces, I guess it's not a Venn diagram if it's more than two circles. So somebody make fun of me for that and correct. But all those,
Overlapping
oh,
multiple Venn
yeah,
diagram,
yes,
Nicole,
multiple Venn
Mike. It's a
diagrams. We'll go
new
with that.
Mike graph.
3D.
Yeah.
Underneath all of that is purpose, um, because that's a touchstone for my values, which is what I aim to be the guiding force, basically the rudder of my life. So it's hard for me not to say overstate it in a way or say it in a way that feels overstated because I can't really identify anything that's paramount to that in terms of my life's considerations. And I guess specifically what it means to me, um, is the action and the playing out of those values. So helping other people, um, living by a set of beliefs, that I believe to be, that make up my sense of morality and my actions aligning with those. Um, that's what it looks like in real life, I guess, for me.
Mhm.
I was thinking about going back to what I said in the very, very beginning about, for me, purpose is a mindset. So It's like if I am in a state of learning and growing, I have purpose. I feel like I have purpose. And that for me is a mindset. So I can like go outside and go on a walk and be in the wrong mindset, and it can be sort of this useless. I'm pulling out my phone, I'm scrolling, I'm listening to music, uh, or I can go out on a walk and be in a different mindset and see that there's caterpillars out and trees are blooming, and a neighbor comes out that I can help change a tire, and I learn how to change a tire, like, but that's a mindset. That's not because those purpose things are there on one day and not there on the other day. Those external things are so fragile and they're so easily changed. Um, so for me, it's like if I'm sort of like I can give myself purpose or get to a place of purpose, even if I'm in a funk, even if I'm in an argument, even if I'm not acting in alignment with my morals and values. If I can shift to this is an opportunity for me to learn how to respond in a better way in this situation, then I have purpose in that moment. Like I have purpose in the present moment. And that's really like all I'm looking for is purpose in the present moment. I don't need to know that tomorrow at 3:53 p.m. I'm going to have the same purpose or the same values, right? So for me, having purpose in life is a feeling and a mindset. And it's a feeling and a mindset of openness, of willingness, of learning, of opportunity, not opportunities that are being presented to me, but remembering that life is just a classroom
Hmm.
and not being because a part of this question is who how, what what were you doing wrong about it or something like that? How do people get it wrong? I don't really think we can get it wrong. I don't think we can do that. I think every single moment is an opportunity to find purpose. And that purpose in that dark moment we were talking about a few minutes ago, maybe like for me was that I learned how to ask for help in that moment. I learned how to ask for help in my darkest moment. Was I sitting in that moment being like, I have purpose? Like sometimes I don't know the purpose of the moment until 5 years, 6 years, 7 years later, right? But the promise, like the promise that I'm kind of making to people, and that may be too big of a promise, but there's always purpose.
Hmm.
Like there's always purpose in every moment. Life is giving me purpose in every moment. It's just a matter of where my head is and if I can see it. And and we're probably going to talk about this, and I will talk about this later because I don't really want to kind of be like I feel like that just leaves listeners hanging of like, okay, well, how do I shift my perspective? You know,
Hmm.
um, there are ways to do it, and I think later maybe we'll talk about it, but that for me is purpose. Like, am I in a state of learning? Am I in a state of openness? If I am not, can I come back to a state of openness, observation of opportunity, learning? If I can come to those things, um, then there's purpose.
Hmm.
I told you I've had an existential crisis all day because of
Okay.
this episode.
Can we
It's
just
so
say
I
that?
called
real.
Mike.
So
I called
real.
Mike like 4 times this
I'm
week,
so
and he didn't
sorry.
answer. And I'm like, okay, well now I obviously have no friends anymore.
Oh, Mrs. Vacation takes it back to me. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so
No, you're
That's
sorry
so
that I
fine.
missed
funny.
you this week. I look forward to connecting
It's
soon.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Also, I just have to clarify, like when you said learning, I'm so remiss for not mentioning that for myself as well, because that's absolutely like part of the foundational. When I say values, I
Uh-huh.
I don't mean them necessarily as interchangeable like with morality. Just to like to
Yeah.
clarify. So like morality would be like one of those values. Learning is one of those values. So
Right.
Hmm.
I relate to what Christen's saying that like it kind of there are these pillars for me, and curiosity, learning being another one, and
Hmm.
depending on the situation, it kind of depends which way it presents. It
Yeah.
dictates which way it presents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, we talk a lot about values here, and the difference I think between morals and values, and the things that actually
Oh
drive
yeah,
our lives. So that's something that's like an ongoing conversation in almost every
yeah,
episode. It seems
yeah.
like. I think I don't have any set definition for what purpose is. And I think maybe that's okay. I think our purpose shifts and changes throughout our lives. Like
Mhm.
Kristen said, sometimes your purpose shifts and changes throughout the day. It doesn't have to be like this one big overarching goal that drives your entire life. And I think that maybe is where people get overwhelmed, and that tends
Mhm.
to throw them off. And then they're like, well, I just don't have a purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. So for me, purpose is very much based in who I am. So knowing me like deeply and stripping away all of society's expectations and all of the I'm supposed to be's and all of that,
Mhm.
and knowing like what my gifts are and what my values are, and then figuring out how I can use those things to create some version of positive impact in the world around me. And that doesn't mean that I have to go out and change the world. Maybe that means that I'm just kind to somebody
Mhm.
that day. But to me, I get a sense of purpose when I feel like I'm leaving something of value in this world each day, even
Mhm.
if the tiniest things, even if it's like a piece of art, right? Little things that to me gives me a sense of purpose. And again, that's not going to be the case for everybody, but it doesn't have to be this big, huge, massive thing. And I think for so long, that's what I was looking for, was like I needed this big, huge answer to
Right.
land in my lap. And then I would feel like I had a purpose. And so I looked for that forever, and I felt like there was no purpose because that answer never just fell from the sky and landed in my lap. And so it turns out it's the tiny little things that just feel like you're going the direction you're meant to go. And for
Mhm.
me, a lot of that is
That's
the impact that I have the potential to create if I'm staying aligned with all of those things that are important to me.
I mean, you talk about alignment, you talk about values, and values is something we talk about a lot on this podcast, and for good reason. Uh, The more I think about that, the more this is how I stay in alignment with whatever my purpose may be. If I was to write down my top 10 values, and if I was to just live within those values, I will find the purpose. The purpose exists within those because they're all things that I hold dear. And I think this is probably the point that I'm trying to get at is, you know, sometimes when we talk about purpose, like you mentioned, Julie, we have to pick it. We feel like we have to pick a thing.
Mhm.
So, and we all have a different version of what purpose looks like to us. And Kristen having an existential crisis trying to figure out, like, what does purpose mean? How is it? What is it? This is not an easy topic. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's not something that you just whip out of a hat or Google to get the answer for, because it's personal. It's an internal thing. It comes from me, and that purpose is a gift that I get to give to the world. That's what it looks like. And that's how it feels. And we don't get to live it every day. It would be
Yeah.
nice if we could. It would be nice if that's just the way it is, but perfection, that doesn't exist. But what purpose right now looks like to me is I have big goals. There are things that I look forward to trying to achieve. What happens along the way, I need to be flexible with. I need to be open to whatever the
Mhm.
opportunities show up between now and then, because my goal might be something that's big and lofty and far out in the future. And I know it's going to take me a while to get there, but in 2 years, that might look different. And I have to allow that to look different. So sometimes I have to simplify it. Sometimes I got to break it right down and make it small. Those are the values. Those are the things.
Mhm.
Impact is something that I value, something that I want to achieve. I can do that on a daily basis, and it doesn't have to be big. Sometimes when we think about the word purpose, and I'm going to bring up responsibility again, it comes with responsibility. If
Yeah.
I want purpose in my life, it is going to come with responsibility. And if I avoid responsibility, I am also avoiding purpose. I'm not going to find it. I'm just not, because I'm going to avoid the things that are important to me.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's the importance of small
Okay.
goals too. That you bring up. You know,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that they
it's
can
the
show
little
up. That
things
purpose
and
can
that
show up.
drive us.
yeah.
Towards yes, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. If my purpose is
And
not just. If at one point I thought my purpose was to be a GM of an NFL team, you know, that look how healthy that person was. And now in front of you, the model of health that you say, no, something short of that, but still something well short of that, but better than he was before.
I was
Oh,
I was gonna say
oh,
something about flexibility. And like you mentioned goals and this is so relevant for me the last few weeks in my life because I've been under a lot of stress. I've been very much struggling and I'm living the life that I manifested maybe 3 years ago. I've got an amazing relationship. I've got a job where I help people. I have lots of good friends. I get to travel. I have freedom of movement throughout the world. And let me tell you right now, and everybody that's listening that doesn't have those things might say F you, and I'm fine with that because it feels really fucking heavy right now.
Mhm.
And I thought all of those goals, like I'm gonna have those goals, I'm gonna be living my purpose, and to an extent I am, but it's exhausting.
Mhm.
And I'm struggling with it. And like you said, Julie, I'm kind of like up to my therapy to once a week right now because I'm like that poor woman, that poor woman that I talk to every Monday. But um the flexibility of kind of being like, okay, it's okay that maybe this isn't giving me my purpose. Like I thought these things were going to be fulfilling and they're not fulfilling.
And
And
back
that's
then,
okay. And learning that.
that's something that was important to you at the time. But you've
Yeah. And it
grown,
still
your
is.
perspective
Yeah.
has changed though.
Yeah.
And it didn't end up being the thing that you thought it was going to be. And that's okay.
Right. Right. And the other piece of that, and I think the last episode I was on with you, Mike, basically the key that I took away from it is we're all fucked up. We just want to be with people who also know they're fucked up. That was like the message. And I think that's like a very calming
wow.
message. And I think when it comes to purpose, the key thing to remember for me and the key thing that I share with other people is nobody knows what they're doing. And I think we talked about that in the parenting episode too. Nobody knows what they're doing. You are not alone that you haven't found some great big purpose. And if someone comes up to you and tells you they found their purpose and they're living in their purpose, that's wonderful. But I'll go back to this too shall pass. Right? Like
Always,
that
in every
also is
situation.
only for a moment.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's like we get stuck. And I think one of the things that perpetuates the stuckness for me is I have to find a purpose. I have to find a purpose. I have to be like all these other people who have the book and know the instructions and know what to do. And I need to be able to manage all of this and still be living in my purpose and helping people and being a good mom and doing all of
Here's
being
the
a good
book.
Partner.
Here's the instructions.
Thank you.
Do you
That
see?
A
is
blank
it.
book.
Do you see?
Exactly.
You nailed it.
That's
You nailed it.
the other, but the other side of it is just as blank and it has just as
Right.
many lines.
Exactly.
And that's the
Yeah.
beauty of the book, and that's the beauty of the empty page.
Hmm.
Is when you take responsibility, you get to be the one who writes in it.
Right. Right.
We're, as humans, we are meant to grow and evolve. And
Mhm.
inevitably, when we grow and we evolve, the things that feel purposeful and meaningful to us are going to grow and evolve also. They're supposed
Right.
to. I think that we do ourselves a disservice if we decide what our purpose is when we're 22 years old and we insist on living out that purpose for the rest of our lives. And I think there are a lot of people who do that and they end up stuck. Yeah, it's like this is the picture that I have created for my life that we decide when we're 22 or 25 or whatever that is. And even after we've outgrown that purpose, we force ourselves to stay in it and we force ourselves to try to make that feel fulfilling when in reality we've outgrown that and we need to let ourselves grow and evolve into the next purpose. That's the gift right there.
Isn't that
That's a
just a
great
recipe to make yourself miserable?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I was.
It's not a nice place to be.
It's not a
Have
nice
we-
place to be.
Have we
It
all
can-
been married and divorced as well?
Yeah.
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 It's very
Okay.
similar play out. Like, it
Yeah.
was a very
Mhm.
similar play out for me because I thought it was a great idea when I did it, right? Like,
Yeah.
that it's sort of a microcosm of that life's purpose and forcing yourself into and then realizing, "Oh, maybe
Mhm.
not," you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
So
your purpose is trying to conform into a certain shape that you've either created for yourself or that's been created for you, um, it
That one's
probably
worse.
doesn't.
The one that's created for you,
Yeah,
if you're trying to fit into that thing, ooh, God.
that's
that's
like an ultimate sense of emptiness
Yeah.
right
Mhm,
there is forcing
mhm,
yourself into a purpose that either you've outgrown or that somebody else handed you to begin with.
mhm,
That creates the greatest sense of emptiness, I think. And I think we've all
mhm,
lived that.
Mhm.
I have see a huge trend. I don't know if this is like has anything to do with era or but it's probably always gone on to a certain extent. But I end up coming across a large, a good deal of young people in there, like anywhere 22 to 28, and see various versions of this happening. And why are they intersecting with me? Well, because some type of substance use disorder probably has developed. But, part of the impetus for that developing was them trying to, like you're saying, just like pound that nail into, a piece of granite. And it's just left them with that profound sense of emptiness that we're talking
Mhm.
about. That
mhm.
Exactly.
put them in that arrested development state. I just see a huge trend of that with young people today and overlapping with substance abuse.
Mhm. I think that's probably been generationally a thing. Maybe we're starting to recognize it more and more because we have more awareness and research on some of these different topics. But I
Mhm,
mean, I know people who are in their 70s who felt that way in their 20s also. So
Mm-hmm.
I
mhm,
think we just maybe talk about it more. I'm going to
mhm.
kind of bring us up to a point of closing and ask you guys our last question here. So if we have somebody listening and they're thinking, my life feels empty and I don't know where to start, what do you want them to know?
Here we are again.
No.
I sort of wrote I wrote "Start on the inside," but after how deep this conversation has gone, that feels like a patronizing answer, and I don't feel like it may be helpful to everybody. I think the answers are on the inside, and that's empowering, but I think starting by talking about it is really a good start. And that doesn't have to mean because right now it's very hard to get it takes forever to get in with a therapist or whatever. It can take so long. But you could start by talking to a friend or someone who you trust. You could try going to a professional. But I think if your life feels empty, talk to someone about it. The universe has a way of presenting us with the opportunity that we need when we become open to it. And
Mhm.
sitting and spiraling in our own heads is not being open. It's like not a big fan. Not a fan of my own head.
No, the rumination, not at all.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say that just I have in my life personally been someone who would have told you very clear and strong sense of purpose that was in retrospect very myopic, not reflective of the person who I am, not reflective of my values and what's important to me. And couldn't have been more sure about that. I've also been the person who has sat there feeling that entirely empty and with no idea what direction would extricate me from that position. And like Kristen said about time passing and opportunities, I think talking to other people, like she said as well, is an opportunity to grow your way out of that a little bit. And
Mhm.
maybe another tip is to um, think about in your life if there were points at which you did feel like you had purpose and what were they. Now that's not necessarily instructive of what the future is, but it may give you some data to go on in terms of how you got to that point or or some common patterns of these times in your life when you did feel a sense of purpose?
Mhm. Very good point. I would say get to know yourself fearlessly. All
Mm.
the good, all the bad. Know who you are and do that with someone, do that with a therapist, a friend, a coach, whoever you trust, if that's what you need to do. But if you can open your heart to yourself exactly as you are, flaws and imperfections and achievements and strengths and all of it, and then you can start taking steps to like fully embody that version of you, you're going to start finding things that feel meaningful. And that's not quick and it's not easy and it can be scary because a lot of us don't love ourselves right now. But I think that's how I found purpose was it started with fearlessly getting to know who I really am.
When things get big, I like to simplify things because it gives me a place to start. And so I wrote it down. What can you do today that will make tomorrow you proud?
Mm.
It's that
Yeah.
simple. Sometimes it's just that simple. If you do that enough times, you will find purpose. It will exist. You'll touch it. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kristen. Love having you guys on. Love seeing you guys. Thank you for sharing some really deep personal topics. I had no idea where this episode was going to go, and I freaking love it. I love that we got to give the gift of everyone's like real honesty in some of our darkest moments. So our listeners, thank you all. I look up like this is where you guys are. If you're watching, I'm looking up to our listeners. Like I'm below you guys. I don't know what that it was all about.
We're in the radio waves. That's what
I
it
know
is.
the radio waves, the whatever waves. Anyways, I'm not going to ask you for anything this time. If you made it this far, thank you. Just thank you. And we'll see you again next episode.
Awesome.